You're listening to the Black to Business podcast, an educational podcast providing Black entrepreneurs with the tools and resources to start and grow their businesses. We chat with vetted Black entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and business owners as they provide tips and resources to help take your business to the next level. I'm your host, Monique T. Marshall. On this episode of the Black to Business podcast.
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously a scary thing because I didn't know what to expect. I knew that this is what I had been planning for a long time. Some may say my whole life. But when the decision that needs to be made is like staring you in the face, and it's either you choose to make that decision and go down that path, or you choose to walk away from that decision, that's never an easy thing. I believe in myself, I believe in what I'm about, and I believe in my abilities. So in that belief, I'm always acutely aware that I will figure it out no matter what. Even if I make the wrong decision, and whatever the decision that needs to be made is, I will figure it out in the long run.
So I'm loving that I'm living in this current moment, aren't you? No matter the ups and downs, the one thing I appreciate is that we kind of live in a time that shows that you have absolute control. And to be honest, there are some people who still haven't figured that out, and that's okay for now. But after this episode, we can't really let you get away with that excuse. So today's Chief Chat, we are discussing how to control your own life story with Benoni Tagoe. So a little bit about Benoni. He launched his career as an assistant to the Jonas Brothers and quickly became a part of the band's day-to-day management team. And there he developed a keen sense of entrepreneurship. Since then, Benoni has produced content for both TV and new media on platforms that have collectively garnered over 20 million views. In his current role, Tagoe is the head of business development for Issa Rae Productions, specifically the misadventures of Awkward Black Girl and HBO's Insecure. Additionally, Tagoe has profiled as a modern man in Black Enterprise magazine for his work with his management and consulting company, the Bizz Plan, which works with various media brands, including Uninterrupted, which is LeBron James' sports platform, and beauty entrepreneur Peakmill, and financial expert and past podcast guest Tonya Rapley. So during this episode, we really dove into how to live an authentic life and dealing with those rough patches. And also an interesting point Benoni mentioned is why it's important to be transparent in your business model and why it works, and how to actually monetize the things that you can control. So this was a great episode. I'm so excited to share. It's really deep. So let's get into it. So Benoni, thank you so much for being on the Black to Business podcast. I'm so excited that you're here to share your story and give a little pointers to our audience. So thank you for being here.
No, thanks for having me. I'm really excited. I've heard a lot of great things about the podcast, so happy to be a part of it.
Of course. So before we get started, of course, we'll go more in depth as the conversation continues. But I really just start with asking my guests to just tell a little bit about you for those who don't yet know you, your story, and what it is that you do in your business.
Sure. So my name is Benoni Tagoe. I run business development for Issa Rae Productions, which is basically me looking for opportunities to break into markets that we're not currently broken into, finding ways to optimize what we're already doing, and essentially just looking for growth. As a part of that, I also have a talent management company, which derived from working with Issa Rae for so long. I saw some of the things, the tips or the tactics that we use and some of the strategies that we use. And I realized that I could apply those things to other people. And so I started a talent management company called the Bizz Plan that I've been running for about 2 years now. It originally started as a web series, and that web series lives on the Issa Rae YouTube channel. And it originally featured people like Jabari Johnson from the Colors R&B Only parties. It featured Issa Rae, King Batch, and a bunch of notable names, Lena Waithe as well. So I would say, to give you a quick summary, I'm just a person that's been trying for a long time. And I recognized very early that I had a skill set, or I thought about things a little bit differently than most people. And I was able to apply that to entrepreneurs and creatives and ultimately help them build their thing.
So you are definitely doing it. I really wanted you on the podcast too, because I've been following your story. I was a big fan of the Bizz Plan video series. I love that. So one of the things, as a past guest, you worked with Tonya Rapley. She also mentioned that she worked with you. So I definitely want to get into like what you're doing with the Bizz Plan as well. But if you could kind of just start from the beginning, like your journey. What was your first job? How did you land it? Like starting from the beginning until kind of like leading up to now.
Sure. Thanks for listening to the Bizz or watching the Bizz Plan. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So I grew up in Vegas. I was born in LA, but I grew up in Vegas. And while I was in Vegas, as I got older, I would just try a bunch of different business ideas. So, there was at the time tech was becoming a thing, and short codes on your phone where you text a number and you would get like a coupon back. So I would try different things like that and just various websites. I was also into real estate. So I built a real estate website that I thought was going to be the biggest website ever. Honestly, it was probably Zillow before Zillow. If you will. So I was running around Vegas and really just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I knew that I wanted to be successful. I knew that I wanted to make a lot of money. And I knew that ultimately I wanted to live the life that I chose. And so as I was growing up, I had a nephew who decided to start rapping. And he was like, well, I love rapping, but I just need help with it. And I was like, I have a couple business ideas. Let me help you with that. And so I worked with him for a little bit, just managing him, trying to find places to get him featured, interviews, figuring out rollout schedules, marketing strategies, and all of that. And after a while, I realized that I was only going to get so far being in Vegas and trying to be in the music industry. And so I moved to LA so that I could take it to the next level, because LA was like the big leagues of the music industry for me at the time. And for for the most part, it still is. And so I moved to LA and I went to a school called Musicians Institute where I studied the music business. And while I was in class, I ended up meeting one of my teachers, actually, who I had a good relationship with. He was like, oh, the Jonas Brothers are looking for interns for their management company. If you're interested, one of their managers is a friend of mine. Just make sure you send me your resume, and I'll submit your resume to my friend. And so I submitted my resume, and I ended up interviewing for the internship, and I got the job. And the next 3 months was a whirlwind. I was broke at the time because I was an intern and a student, but I was able to be in a position to, go to photo shoots, go to video shoots, to be able to talk to the Jonas Brothers, this huge pop band. And I was like, this is what I came to LA for. This is like, everything is coming together in the way that I planned it. To make a long story short, after my internship was over, they were like, we don't have the budget to hire you, but we're going to make sure you get a job in the industry somewhere. And so that job, they eventually helped me get a job at AEG. AEG is a big concert promoter. They own they own some of the Lakers. They own most of downtown LA. And while I was working for that company, I would do VIP concert packaging. And VIP concert packaging is basically anytime you buy a VIP pass to any big tour, like whether you're buying a meet and greet package or a pre-show party or a special performance that's on the side, I was the person in charge of organizing that. So some of the tours I worked on is Justin Bieber's My World Tour. So Justin Bieber's tour was my first tour. Black Eyed Peas, which is really cool. So I did Black Eyed Peas, Ricardo Arjona, Pitbull, and I believe at the time we did something with U2. So I did that for a couple months, and then out of the blue, I got a phone call from one of the Jonas Brothers managers, and they were like, hey, they're about to go on tour, and they need an assistant, and we need you to be in Chicago. It's a world tour, but we need you to be in Chicago in the next 3 days. And so I basically had to quit my job on the spot. I packed up everything, and the next 3 to 4 years was a whirlwind. And then in that time, I met Issa Rae, who was like, hey, I have a show called Awkward Black Girl that I want to put out, and I just need people on my team. I don't really have the money to pay anyone, but I want people to support, to help me build this thing. And I just at the time, I believed in her vision, and the rest was kind of history.
Oh my God. It's so many things. That is amazing. It's like so many things I definitely want to touch on from that conversation. One is the fact that you moved from Vegas to LA, which is not cheap, but also I feel like you wanted to do, entertainment. So it's about, standing out. And one of the things the conversation today is about changing the narrative and controlling our narrative. So what was it like for you standing out for, this thing because you mentioned that you wanted success, you saw success. So how was it for you to stand out in this pursuit?
Well, honestly, I haven't changed in terms of I want to live the life that I want. I'm living the life that I wanted to live. And, there's a lot of things like when you're in LA, it's a lot of things that are, there are a lot of positions that people may try to put you in under the spirit of networking. And, at the end of the day, I just subscribe to my own theories and I do what I want to do. I don't, I have my friends, I have my professional relationships, but truthfully, I just stick to what feels good to me. And I'm not willing to bend in doing something that doesn't make me feel good. And what I've learned is that my original idea of wanting to make a lot of money, that's neither here nor there. That's not what life is about. What I've learned in my older age is that it's really about being in position to make decisions and make choices and to be a part of something that ultimately makes you feel good. The money will come, success will come, acclaim will come. But at the end of the day, if you're making decisions that you're not happy about, then it's never worth it.
I love that. One of the things that you mentioned too is the fact that you believed in the vision and you also quit your job to, go on this tour. So what was that like for you, like that process of quitting your job, and just a little bit, if you could touch on like some of the successes and some of the low moments that you faced and overcame during that transition?
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously a scary thing because I didn't know what to expect. I knew that this is what I had been planning for a long time. Some may say my whole life. But when the decision that needs to be made is like staring you in the face, and it's either you choose to make that decision and go down that path, or you choose to walk away from that decision, that's never an easy thing. I believe in myself. I believe in what I'm about, and I believe in my abilities. So in that belief, I'm always acutely aware that I will figure it out no matter what. Even if I make the wrong decision in whatever the decision that needs to be made is, I will figure it out in the long run. And so the Jonas Brothers situation, that was just an opportunity. First of all, it was more money than I had ever made, which, that'll change a lot of conversations. Second of all, it was the major leagues of the music business, which is what I had always wanted to be in. And I knew that once I got into that system, I would be able to pivot and figure out things along the way. And so there was a lot of success in that. I was able to buy my mom a house. I was able to take care of myself financially.
Wow.
So that was the awesome part about it. The not so awesome part was, traveling and touring takes a toll on your body. And it's really hard to manage that process, especially when you don't have anyone around you that can give you advice on how to manage that process. So that was very difficult. And then the hard part as well was after that ride was done and it was my time to leave and not work with them anymore, it was extremely hard for me at the time to find a job that paid me the same amount of money that I was making with them. And that was difficult because you get used to a certain lifestyle and get used to paying for certain things and buying certain things and having certain things. And then all of a sudden you no longer have the means to do that. But the ironic part about it is around the same time that my time with them was ending was the time that my work with Issa Rae started to ramp up. And I wasn't making any money with her at first. And then even when I did start making money with her, it was, it was enough to maybe pay a phone bill or two. That was about it. Um, and but it reminded me of how important it is to be a part of something. And when I saw her vision and how she was willing to work hard and go for her vision and not let anything stop her, I was just like, this is another decision that I have to make. But this decision is easy because I'm going to be able to stand next to someone who believes in something so passionately. And I know that with my skill sets and with the things I bring to the table, I can help this thing grow. So to answer your question, decisions are very difficult, and believing in visions can sometimes be difficult, but you just got to go for it. And you just have to rely that no matter what decision you make, you'll figure it out in the end.
Definitely. And one of the things that you did mention, which I think is so awesome, from the get-go, you mentioned the fact that you believed in her vision. And also, like last week on the episode, we had a social responsibility, and that was one of the topics. It's about having people believe in your vision. Do you kind of feel like, and you mentioned that you weren't getting paid, do you kind of feel like we live in this era where people kind of like demand so much and they're not willing to put in the work? Like, what are your thoughts on that versus like, I should be getting paid this or I won't do it?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely are. I think it's a good mix. I think that our generation is heavy on purpose, meaning I want to be a part of something that is impactful. I want to be a part of something where I feel like my voice is heard and that my work is going to be shown to the masses. So when I say all those things, there's no money attached, right? But then, and it's heavily because of social media and the way that it's grown. I think that, and because we're such a detached generation, I think that internally we look for things that are purposeful. Because if you could scroll through Instagram all day and not really see anything that has purpose or true meaning.
Right.
And so deep down, I think that we're always looking for purpose. Aside of that, again, because of social media and because you're constantly watching the highlight reel of others, I think that people are about, well, I need to be making money because this, that, and the third. But I think that once you start peeling back the layers, you'll find out and you'll realize that some of the people that you look up to, or some of the people that you think are killing it, they may be in a position to have accolades and to look like they're winning. But at the end of the day, they may be struggling just as much as you are financially, or they may be in the worst position than you are financially. I've seen it time and time again. I see people on TV shows sleeping on somebody's couch, So I think that you have to find that balance of like, okay, is this a situation I'm going to enter into where I should get paid from? Or is this a situation that I'm going to learn from? It's going to put me in a position that I want to be in when it's all said and done? Or is this a situation that provides true value, true purpose to my life and to the life of others? Once you start weighing those factors, then you have to make a decision. With my company, I have a transparency model with the Bizz Plan. So everyone on my team knows how much money is coming in. So the amount of money that you're making on my team is the amount of money that I could afford to pay you. There's never going to be a day where my company is making millions and millions of dollars and you're looking at your paycheck like, well, my check doesn't reflect it. So I try to be honest, and I sell people on the vision and the growth that we're going to obtain together. And then I also let them know, hey, here's where the dollars and cents are. So let's not even worry about money, because as you can see by this spreadsheet, there is no money coming in. Or as you can see by this spreadsheet, this is the amount of money that's coming in, and calculate your salary based off of that. You'll see that you're making a good amount of money compared to the amount of money that's coming
in. That's very interesting. Do you think that, I don't know to the extent, but do you think that when it comes to like the expenses and things like that, that it's beneficial to have those numbers out there, or especially when it comes to bringing other people on the team?
Yeah, I definitely think it's beneficial, because for me, I am, it's a management company, right? So by default, the main way that we make money is based off of if the clients are making money. So if the clients aren't making money, then the company's not making money at this point in the game. And so with that being said, it's important that my team sees, hey, these are our clients. You know what our clients are capable of. You know what our clients are worth. This is the amount of money that they're making. How can we increase that? And people on my team, they have to respect it and they have to understand. I want them to be in the know of what's coming in, because in a way, I also want them to be motivated to say, okay, we need to raise the money for this client because she or that client has the ability to be making so much more. So it's important for me to let people know kind of what's going on, but understand that the transparency model that I have doesn't just extend to dollars and cents. It's also transparent about me being transparent to them about sometimes I don't know everything and I don't know how I should lead, or I don't know the correct decision to make. And so I encourage open dialogue because we all have various skill sets that we're bringing to the table, and no one should be afraid to be able to speak up and to voice their opinion on anything, whether it be money coming in or whether it be a decision that's being made for the client. Like, everybody should have a seat and a voice at the table.
Definitely. I love that. So you kind of started talking about it. Let's talk about the Bizz Plan and what it is that you do within the Bizz Plan. And I know you kind of mentioned how you got started, but why the Bizz Plan and what is it that you do?
Sure. So the Bizz Plan is a talent management and consulting company. And I created it because at the time that when I stopped working for the Jonas Brothers and I was struggling to find my next job, and because I was struggling to bring income in and my lifestyle had changed so drastically, I entered into depression because I was broke and my life at the time was crumbling before my eyes. And so I took the last money that I had and I created the Bizz Plan because the web series, I created the Bizz Plan web series because I wanted to make sure that no one had to experience the things that I experienced at the time. And so I was like, you know what, let me create this series so I can help others who may end up in this situation, hopefully not. But I wanted for them to hear other people's stories so that they could find their way out. And so it started off as a web series, but I always knew that it was going to be a brand and a company that I created. So at the time, at this point, I have 5 clients, and essentially all of my clients at this point are social media based. I don't like calling them influencers, but they all have a heavy foundation on social media. And what I do is I take them, I say, okay, I see what you're doing. Let's build a business around your talents, and let's build a business and around your abilities, and let's leverage your social media following. So right now, my primary target is people who are heavily based on social media who can have a business built around them. Eventually, that's going to transfer over to actors, actresses, producers, directors, then music people. I'm going to go back to my music roots. So I'll start to manage artists, and then partnering with companies, consulting companies, and then video gamers is the last vertical that I'll be going after. So essentially, the goal and the vision is to build this management company and talent consulting company to ultimately be, 1, the biggest in the world, and 2, I want to represent anything that can be represented. And so we're on our way at this point.
I love it. Like I mentioned, Tonya Rapley is someone who's been on the podcast. And also, like I mentioned, I was a fan of these web series. And one of the things that upon my research and just following your journey is that you have been able to kind of create these strategies for these individuals to like control their narrative. And that's something that you're big about. Is there a specific reason, or why do you feel that it's so important for us as Blacks to control our narratives in mainstream when it comes to that?
Oh, it's extremely important because if we don't control that narrative, then somebody else will for us. And we don't ever want to be in a position where someone else is telling our stories and we're saying, oh, well, that's not exactly how it goes, or why did they do it that way? So we have to take leadership and we have to take ownership, I should say, of our own stories. Now, at the same time, I do recognize that there's levels to all of this, right? And it's not easy to, we can control our own narratives to a degree, but at the end of the day, we still have to go to these big studios and we still have to sell our projects. So eventually, as we all continue to develop and grow and create our own storytelling and create our own platforms for our own storytelling, hopefully that'll be big so we can go to each other and help expand our stories instead of having to go to another culture or another race to tell those stories.
Definitely. So what's it like, working with you, because you mentioned you have these 5 clients, and what is it that, they come to you with this big following, and what happens?
Yeah, every situation is different. One of the early lessons that I learned is that I thought that I could take the work that I did for Issa Rae and I can copy and paste it to someone else. And what I quickly found was, no, that's not how it works. So every client is different. Some clients I'm talking to every day and we're strategizing or we're building something. There's other clients that I might talk to, twice a week, and I know what they're doing. They know what I'm doing, and we touch base and we keep it pushing. So it really just varies. But a lot of times what I like to do is I like to take a step back and say, okay, what are your big ideas? What are your goals? What are your visions? And then I hear that from the client. And then I also say, I try to add to that. This is also what I believe that you could be doing. And these are opportunities for you. And so usually once I throw out my ideas, they throw out their vision, we usually come together and we put together a plan of action. And, we relay that to the rest of the team. On my side, if the talent has a team, we relay that to the team and then we move forward. But a lot of my job and a lot of my growth as a manager has relied around being flexible and being able to say, okay, this isn't working, we need to re-strategize, or to say, you know what, this is working just fine. Let's go back to the drawing board.
Definitely. So what would you say to someone, say, for instance, because they're growing their social media following and they're trying to grow their influence. And one of the things that I tend to see is people aren't sure how to monetize these things, whether it be that they focus on a specific niche. And you mentioned like going after these bigger companies and partnering with these bigger companies, although they may be focused, say, on the black niche. So what advice would you give them on, trying to monetize these strategies and these ideas that they have, and also their social following, so that it does turn into a business?
Yeah, I think that when you're looking to monetize your following or when you're trying to build upon what you've created, I think you have to really focus on what your lane is, and you have to be very specific about your lane. We are all multi-talented and we all have a lot of different interests, but when it comes to the online world, people need to know specifically what you represent and what you're about. And then a lot of times I see people make mistakes of thinking that they have to go outside of their audience or outside of their community to get validation. Brands are out there. Yes, brands like to spend money online, but sometimes brands aren't looking for you right now, but that shouldn't stop you. And I see a lot of influencers or people that are big on social media hone in on, I got to get a brand involved. And at the point that you start doing that, that becomes an issue because, it takes forever sometimes for a brand to be involved. And you got to catch them at the right time before they spend all their money for the quarter. And you got to make sure you have the right contact, et cetera, et cetera. Like there's so many things that could be built just leveraging your audience. So if you have an audience, then you got to figure, okay, now that I have this pipeline, what type of products can I feed to that pipeline? And then also you have to be aware that you can't get your audience to buy everything, but you can get your audience to opt into things. So if you're building your mailing list, or if you do a meetup and you have your audience come out and it's a free meetup, like those types of things are huge to ultimately getting your audience to buy things. Posting on Instagram is great because, obviously that's free content and you're engaging with your audience, but you just have to take a step back and think about it from a methodical standpoint and be aware that you have to be very careful of what I call vanity metrics, which are basically, metrics that don't really mean anything. So yeah, you may have a following, but is your engagement high? Are you getting a lot of likes? Are you getting a lot of comments on your posts? All of these things matter. And I would just caution people to think about what they can control before they start going to outsiders and saying, hey, if you give me money or if you do this partnership with me, then the rest is history.
Right. So sometimes I always think about like what happens if, these influencers, what happens if Instagram shuts down or all of these social media platforms, like what happens to your business then type thing?
Absolutely. I mean, we've already seen it happen before, right? Like, I know people are like, oh, Facebook will never go away or Instagram will never go away, but we've had Black Planet, we had Friendster, we had MySpace. So there's been tons of social media companies or platforms that have made a huge impact for the time that they were relevant, and then they went away. Mm-hmm. And so one thing that I always try to advise my clients on is, how can we make passive income off of your thing? And how can we make residual income as well? So figuring out a way to make money when you're asleep, and then figuring out a way to make money on a constant, reoccurring basis on platforms that you control. For instance, you control your website, you control your mailing list, and there's a bunch of other things that you can control depending on what your lane is. But relying solely on social media to be the home for your brand is always a mistake.
I agree. So what are some you would say are like some of the low hanging fruit that most people kind of like miss when it comes to those opportunities for monetization that you've seen, I guess?
Yeah. One that I brought up a couple times, even on this conversation that we're having, is a mailing list. Like, a mailing list is extremely important. You'll be surprised at, one, how engaged your audience can be with your mailing list if your mailing list is good, whether you're putting out dope newsletters, whether you're putting out tips, etc. So that's always a huge opportunity to capitalize in. And once you get to a certain point where your mailing list is huge, you'll be able to, some people say you can start printing money. Like, you'll know that every time you send an email, if that email contains a link to buy something, you'll be able to game plan, okay, if I send an email, I know that I'm going to get 10 sales off this email. So then it becomes a math problem of figuring out how to push things. The other thing that I think that people don't focus in on is the fact that human beings like separation a little bit, and they like exclusivity, and they like to feel like they're the first to be in the know of something. And so segmenting your audience is always a great thing. So if you have an audience of 10,000 people, figuring out a way to lower that audience to, 2,000 people or to 200 people by offering services or by offering things that only a select few people can buy into. And when I say buy into, that could be a mental buy-in. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're pulling out their credit card and buying something from you. But that's a huge component to establishing community, to be able to segment your audience and have smaller audiences accordingly. And then I would say the last thing is figuring out ways to give your fans or your audience a bunch of content, but always prepping them for an upsell. So if you're giving your audience a bunch of free downloadable guides on whatever it is that you do, keep doing that. But then also at the end of that funnel or at the end of that exchange, you say, hey, for the past 4 weeks, I've been providing you with tips and tricks on XYZ. Now, what I want you to do, if you want to get even more access, I need you to pay $19.99 for this thing. And you're going to have be able to have a direct conversation with me and be able to build whatever it is that you're building based off of what I give you.
I love that one. One of the things I do find with that one, though, is also the fact that I guess as a business owner, it's kind of like, and we cater to business owners. So it's kind of like, that upsell is coming. And it's like, what way can you do it better? That upsell, because it's kind of like, we know the upsell is coming, but okay, here it goes. They're trying to sell me something and the content is good. So it's like, as that person that's offering something, how are you going to differentiate that offer, I guess?
Well, the first thing is, someone may say, oh, here comes the sale, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, it's about the story that you're telling. If you can tell a good story, then that is going to be the common denominator to whether that thing that you do is sold or not. So figure out what story you're telling. Yeah, people may see that the upsell is coming, or maybe they don't want to buy the upsell at this time.
Right.
But really focus on your story, because your story is the key component to all marketing.
Definitely. So, I mean, you've worked with a lot of amazing people, and, you know, just sharing your story. I didn't get the chance to ask, like, what was it like for you to get your first client so that you started your business?
You know, getting my first client kind of happened by accident, because, you know, Peakmill was my first client, and she basically just said, hey, you know, I need a manager. You should manage me. And at the time, I was just like, no, I'm not really trying to do that right now. I have other things that I'm focused on. But that was after, you know, talking to her and realizing, wow, there's true value that I could provide to this person. It became an easy decision. Right. So getting Peakmill was a blessing to my life. And, you know, we've been able to do great work together. And then from there, we had a former guest of yours, Tonya Rapley, Tonya is an extremely hard worker, and she's very passionate, and she's very good at what she does. So once I met her and saw what her needs were, that was fairly easy to jump on board. And then from there, I signed Valencia D. Clay, who's a Baltimore school teacher who basically gives her students real talk, and she talks to her students in a way that we've never really seen before from a teacher, in a passionate way, in a very truthful way. And then I have Renee Danielia, who's an awesome influencer, travel extraordinaire. So she's been a great addition to the team. And then the last person is Stacey Ike, who is currently a host on the Empire pre-show on Fox. Formerly, she was on OWN doing an after show for them. And she's been great because she's so hungry and she's so passionate. And I just know that her career is going to be big as it's continuing to grow now.
So those are like all power people. I'm like, I know all of their names. So all power people.
Awesome.
And of course, how do you manage, you know, being someone, because I'm sure there are those who are listeners, they're working, they have their job or, you know, this other thing that they're focused on in addition to their businesses. So how do you manage the two, being with Issa Rae Productions and your own company?
Yeah. I mean, the easiest answer is I wake up early, but you know, it's very difficult to be managing a bunch of different things. Fortunately for me, all of the work that I do is in the same lane. So the work that I do for Issa and the work that I do for my clients, it all is around strategy and being available and talking through things. So there's not a lot of push and pull when it comes to that. But the other thing is I have an amazing team, and having a team has been extremely important, and giving them roles and responsibilities has been extremely important, because without them, I wouldn't be able to do this. So with their individual efforts plus my effort, we're able to run with everything, because you know, we all know what we're capable of, and the expectation has been clearly set. So it works out. For those that are currently working, I would say, you know, you have to keep your lights on. That's most important. You have to make sure you have food, money coming in and putting food on your table. So work that job, and on your off time, and when you get time, that's when you could be working on your side thing. But it's important that you're taking care of yourself as a human being first before you go out and start to try to hustle. Even if you don't like your job, the fact that you're guaranteed a paycheck, and the fact that that paycheck is able to afford you XYZ things, like that's important, because if you're not happy and you're not making money, then it's going to be impossible to build a business.
That's a quote right there. Not happy and not making money. Impossible to build a business.
Trying to give you a couple.
I know. I'm like, noted. So one of the things that you did mention, and it's kind of like a listener's questions. We were actually, one of the listeners were talking about this yesterday, but you mentioned like even you working with Issa Rae, you weren't getting paid at first. And then also the fact that you now have a team that you're managing. What was it like for you building that team? And what advice can you give to someone who may be with a smaller budget or with no budget and looking to build their team because their business is growing?
Well, building a team is not easy, because you have to find you have to find people that are passionate about what it is that you're trying to build, even if it isn't their own thing. So that's never an easy thing. And then starting off, you may not have the biggest budget in the world, or you may not have any budget. So you have to find people who believe in where you are, who see where you are right now, but believe in where you're going. One thing that I try to do is I try to find out what that person is passionate about outside of what I want them to do with me. So I say, what are you passionate about? What are you looking to do? What are your long-term goals? And I try to find things within my business that relate to those long-term goals. I'm really big on not bringing people on my team who are into doing something for me right now because they have nothing else to do. I really want to make sure that what I'm asking from you and what I'm bringing you on board to do aligns with your long-term vision. Because I think that if it aligns with your long-term vision, you're going to get a lot of resources out of working with me and out of working essentially with the clients that we have, because all of our clients are notable. All of our clients are doing their own thing. So I really preach that. And then the last thing is I don't work with anybody who can't be my partner one day. So I tell my team all the time, I'm like, hey, all of you have really dope skill sets and you have really dope things that you bring to the table. When the time comes, we might be able to branch the company off and create a division that solely does whatever your skill set is. And I will be the first person to support that. So, as you're building your team, just really think about who you're hiring and just take your time and be patient with figuring that process out, because that's very important. For me, I have 5 clients right now, and we're going to be taking on even more clients. So I have to have people that are willing to work on my team, because I can't be managing 5 clients and having to micromanage my team members as well. That would drive me crazy. So that's why it's most important.
Yes. And you mentioned the long-term vision. Now, when you say the long-term vision, is it you working with you specifically, or what are your thoughts even on those who are working on other projects? Do you hire people who are working on their own businesses, or is it just, focus?
Yeah, it's a mix. There's some people that have ideas of things that they want to do, but maybe they're not ready to execute on it just yet. And so I ask them what their long-term vision is for themselves and what they want to do. And then I also ask them, what do you want to get out of this? And I try to make sure that I align what they're thinking, what their vision is, and what I'm asking them to do. I'm just trying to make sure I align it to the best of their abilities. And sometimes I might meet someone who I think, hey, I want you to do X, Y, Z for me. And they'll tell me what their vision is. And I'm like, oh, okay. So this is how we can rework this so that I get what I need out of this relationship. And you're also getting what you need and what you want out of the relationship.
Definitely. Love it. So we've covered a lot of great ground. One of the things I really want people to take away is that the fact that you've been able to start at this space, but also continuing to, stay true to your dreams and your goals. So definitely want to ask of you, what advice can you give for those who are looking to either control their own journey, but they're going through that wavering place, or even their business idea that they initially had is being tested? What are some things that they could do to, stay on the course? Stay the course?
Well, it's going to sound extremely cliche, but honestly, you have to keep going, because there are so many different things and so many different variables that will lead you to success. And nobody on this earth knows all those different variables. There's best practices. There's certain strategies that could be implemented as you're chasing whatever it is that you're chasing. But honestly, at the end of the day, the through line through everything is just keep going and keep trying and keep learning. You're going to fail at times. Obviously, that's just a part of it. Failure is a part of success, unfortunately. But it is. But, just keep going and keep trying, because it'll ultimately work out. And the crazy thing is that even if you're trying, we're in a generation now where people reward people that are trying, or just by, oh, I see that you're trying to do this, or I see what you're putting together. How could I be a part of it? Or how could I help you? So we have a lot of people that are willing to help just for the fact that they see that you're putting in effort.
That was good. Before we wrap up, I definitely have some fire questions before I ask that, give the information of how people can stay in contact. But my first question is, what advice would you give your 23-year-old self?
My 23-year-old self, I would say save more money. And save more money, and everything is going to come together just the way that you want it. So just be patient.
Happy hour or brunch?
Oh, brunch for sure.
Black people love brunch. Okay. And the latest thing that you splurged on for yourself?
The latest thing I splurged on for myself, honestly, I went to, this is going to sound really pretentious, but it's the truth. I went to Rodeo Drive, and I went into the Hermes store and YSL and bought myself a couple of things. And I was like, what am I doing? But there were some things that I wanted, so I just made it happen. And then there's these new jeans. I've been having the hardest time finding jeans that I like. And so I found this new designer by the name of Mike Amiri, and I started ordering a bunch of jeans off of Mike Amiri. So the latest things that I've splurged on myself have been all fashion related. But I'm gonna calm down real soon.
It's okay. It's okay. You look good. You feel good.
Absolutely.
So you got it. And what's that new app or that new thing that you just are addicted to right now, whether it be a show, an app, or just like a series or something?
The one thing that I'm actually addicted to is a book, and it's called Homegoing by Ya Gayasi. And have you read that book or heard of it?
I have not.
Okay.
I'm going to write it down.
Yeah. So this book is amazing. It's about two sisters, and it starts off with their journey in Africa. One is sold to slavery, and one marries a British, governor. And it follows their journey pre-slavery, their family's journey before slavery, through slavery, all the way into present day America. And this is hands down one of the best books I've ever, it's probably the best fiction book I've actually ever read. So that's my latest obsession. Like every time I get a chance to steal away some time, I'm like, my head is in the book or I'm listening to it in some form.
Love it. I'm going to have to put that in the show notes and check it out myself. And that was the last question because I was going to ask a book you mentioned. But before we head out, how can people, stay connected with you? How can they support what you're doing, get in contact with you and follow you? Yeah,
so I'm on every social platform at this point. So my social media handle is at NoniBizz, NoniBizz. So you can find me at NoniBizz on all social platforms. And, I have some master classes coming out fairly soon, as well as a couple of downloadable guides. So be on the lookout for that. And it'll basically be, information for creatives and entrepreneurs trying to figure out their next step. And then it's also people that are just looking for business help and, may not have all the business acumen that they need, but they have all the creative juice that anyone could ever want. So I have some products coming out pretty soon that should be great.
Amazing. So guys, you know where you can find them and support. Stay on the lookout. And Benoni, thank you so much for being on the show. And thank you for sharing your journey. I know I took a lot away, and I'm sure that our audience took a lot away. So thank you for being on the show.
No problem at all. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
So I'm sure you enjoyed that episode. I sure did enjoy interviewing Benoni about his experience and also about his journey into entrepreneurship. The one thing I really appreciated is that the path that he's continued to take is he's believing in himself and he continues to remain true to who he is, which I think we could all take a lesson from as we continue this entrepreneurial journey. If you want to see show notes from that episode, be sure to visit blacktobusiness.com/EP29-Benoni Tagoe. So be sure to rate and subscribe to the podcast. We want to continue to have amazing guests, and also reach out to us if you have anyone in mind that would be great for the Black to Business podcast. But until next time, we truly appreciate you for taking the time to listen to the Black to Business podcast.